There's been a lot of conversation about particularly supportive services, and I don't think it is always clear to people what that means to us. So I want to take a few minutes and walk us through kind of how we got to tonight. And so the image you see on your screen is an image that we often use to show people what Micah is today. Everything you see up here, we are doing today. From basic needs and helping people survive on the street to bringing in a lot of different community resources and community partners. There's not even enough room up here for me to list all the different people that actually come and provide services in our folks' homes, in the community, in our building. Healthcare, both medical respite and also coordinated healthcare support, taking that into people's homes. We have a primary care physician that not only meets people in our office, but will go to their home if need be. You've heard Dr. Steiner speak to you a couple times. Housing support, case managers are all over this community supporting. I don't know that it's always clear. We are supporting 170 people in all kinds of different forms of housing programs across this community, and they're living in scattered sites. So we're doing a lot of this right now without a building. Income development, we work on both disability and helping people to get jobs in ways that make sense for them, and also tend to their spiritual and community care through things like street church and helping nurture people's natural gifts and things like that. So all that exists today, before we even had this conversation. The reason we're having this conversation is that right now we have case managers traveling all over this community. They're spending most of their time traveling to different people's houses who have different needs. And a lot of that time is sucked up in traveling as opposed to caring for people. The other thing is this community, I don't have to tell this group, lacks units, particularly affordable ones, for particularly folks on fixed incomes, which are a lot of the folks that we are caring for. And third, when you house people without support system, you've heard me say that people become homeless when they run out of relationships. When you house people who the only relationships sometimes they have are other people of shared experience and people who have that Micah, in some cases, is the main relationship in their lives. When you house them in a lot of different places, they become very isolated and lonely. And when they struggle with different things, it makes it harder for them to live good lives. And so this project will consolidate units for people that need a high level of support. It is not everybody, who don't freak out. Is not everybody that we're already supporting. There are people that are on the street today, and some of the people that are living in housing we know will live better in this community. So it will consolidate in a single site model. It will increase the availability of units that are catered to unique needs. It will create a place where a lot of those supportive services, those stabilization services can happen. And it will allow us to expand some organic support that, frankly, we can't do in scattered sites. It is very difficult to engage the vast amount of volunteers in the community that could participate meaningfully in people's lives when people are living in a lot of different places and they have to be transported and you have to send people out. So these main things, this is our why. This is why we need to do something different as we approach this conversation. And so when we have a Jeremiah community, when it is built, you're going to see something that looks a lot like what we do now, but it's going to look catered to people who live in housing. Whereas the first picture I showed you was both a combination of crisis and stabilization care, Jeremiah community is going to be built around creating a place where these community resources can come to the place that people live. That the doctors aren't meeting in our clothing closet or people's living rooms, that they're meeting in a place that they are able to provide real care for people, and they can walk up the street to get it. The housing case management doesn't just look like a case manager showing up at their house once a week or so. It looks like property management and house inspections, and celebrating that your house was clean this week, and things like that that seem so outside of what we typically understand that is needed when we build housing, but that's what support looks like. And none of that depends on a community building. It will look like job creation, creating ways that people who are living there can go out and work in a garden and drive a golf cart and answer the phone and do different things to be engaged meaningfully in the life of the community and earn some additional income and have worth and dignity in the place that they live. And last but not least, it'll look like spiritual care and being able to create ways that people can have community. One of the things, just as an example, I really appreciate about another project that has been kind of a pilot for us at Hesed House, which is a hotel that we run. It's a temporary situation. But you know what? Today, our folks up there got together and they painted pumpkins. And I know that sounds silly, but to people who have been used to surviving, that is everything, to be able to stop and take a breath and be able to celebrate a holiday that all of us maybe even take for granted. And little things like that are possible when you have the ability to create a place. And that's what we're doing here, is we're trying to create a place where people can live affordably, they can develop purpose, and they can grow meaningful relationships in a way that's frankly difficult with the resources that we have now. And so just to kind of put that in perspective, once built, we're not doing away with anything that we do today. There will still be crisis care outside of Jeremiah Community, and that's separate from Jeremiah Community. But Jeremiah Community will allow us, in many of the ways that you can see on your screen, to have stable neighborhood care in a way that we haven't been able to do together. And some of those things overlap, and some of those things are separate, but it really begins to expand what we call a continuum of compassion to be able to really care for people in a way that they haven't had the opportunity to experience before. Moving this project forward also has added benefit for the city and other people who live in this community. It is cheaper to house and support people than what we're doing now. It costs $35,000 to leave someone on the street and do nothing. It costs about $12,000 to put someone in housing and provide support, and they get a better quality of life. I also always like to remind us that that better care for people in this community. We are not LA. We are not New York City. We have a very manageable number of people living on our streets and in our shelters, and one sizable project can functionally create the kind of housing that people need in order to move off the street. And last but not least, it has added economic development impacts. Fewer unhoused people will be on our streets with this project. It will expand affordable housing in a way that I don't think this region has seen before. It will create workforce development opportunities for people who are traditionally difficult to employ and be able to really nurture the support that they need. And last but not least, I think it invests some meaningful resources in a corridor that also needs some attention in some other ways.